Tonight, pushback from pediatricians who say a solution to overcrowding at the health sciences shouldn't mean moving patients to the Janeway. That story, and a busy 24 hours for the province's two police departments responding to various calls over threats and dangerous weapons.
The wind may have gone out of the hype over hydrogen in this province, but this green energy option is still very much talked about in places like Sunnyside.
We know that those contracts are out there. Now it's a question of whether or not we can meet the price.
I'm Terry Roberts. I'll have that story coming up.
After he ran here in St. John's 45 years ago and before he fell asleep, his very first words that he wrote in his journal were, "Today is the day it all begins."
And 45 years later, Fred Fox journeys to St. John's to honor the anniversary of his brother's Marathon of Hope in the place where it all began.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin tonight with a slew of public warnings on the Avalon, all in connection with threats or other weapons-related offenses. So let's start in St. John's, where a 40-year-old man remains in custody tonight. This after RNC received a weapons-related threat at the newly opened mental health and addictions facility. Memorial University issued a shelter-in-place order this afternoon for those at the health sciences and the medical school. Police say the man was located at his home a short time later without incident, and a weapon was not found. He faces charges of mischief. And another incident to tell you about. There were reports of a man walking with a firearm this morning that prompted another warning. Those in the area of Mint Cove Pond Road in Spaniards Bay were told to shelter in place. RCMP decided to lift that warning after officers failed to locate the man. Police said the order was issued out of an abundance of caution and there was nothing to suggest ill intent or foul play. Meanwhile, a tactical unit with the RNC responded to a residence in St. John's Sunday night with weapons drawn. It was a tense scene outside this home on Thorburn Road near the Avalon Mall. Police say officers were responding to multiple reports of gunshots in the area. A man and woman were taken into custody but have since been released. Police say officers recovered a BB gun from the home and that an investigation is ongoing. Now to news from the courts. Two men are suing the province, saying the RNC and Child Protective Services didn't do enough to stop the alleged abuses of Tony Humby. Both plaintiffs were teenage passengers in Humby's car when he was stopped by police in the middle of the night 18 years ago. As Ryan Cook reports, Humby's previous interactions with police are now central to their lawsuits.
3 a.m. October 11th, 2007. Tony Humby was pulled over on the side of Blackhead Road near St. John's. His passengers, two 16-year-olds and a 13-year-old. We've told you about this traffic stop a few times, but now it's central to the claims in two new lawsuits filed by two of the boys who were in the car that night. Both men say everyone in the car had been drinking, but they don't recall Humby being breathalyzed or arrested. One of the boys was later questioned by police and told them nothing happened, and one of the mothers was also interviewed. They now say police failed to tell them something important back then, that another teenager had gone to police less than a month earlier and told them Humby had raped him. Humby wasn't arrested until April 2023, when along with his neighbor Bruce Escott, he was charged with a long list of historical sex offenses. Humby's case involves 12 vulnerable teens. They're suing the provincial government, which oversees the police force and child protection system, saying they knew in 2007 that Humby was a sexual predator, but didn't do enough to stop him. The result? They allege Humby and his friends sexually abused them for years, abuse they believe should have been avoided. The province is yet to file a statement of defense, and the claims have yet to be tested in court. But in a statement to CBC Investigates, the RNC said it cannot comment on civil or criminal matters that are currently before the courts. Bruce Escott pleaded guilty to 7 charges late last year and was given a 13-year sentence. Humby was supposed to head to trial on 72 charges in March, but it's been hampered by delays. It could begin next month. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
Canada and the cartels are locked in a game of cat and mouse.
We're gonna pounce. Today is our day to pounce. Okay.
We're embedded with the Royal Canadian Navy here in the Caribbean, one of the major supply routes of cocaine reaching Canada. Coming up this week on Here and Now, a feature documentary on where cocaine comes from and the countless lives affected along the way.
Back into the water, starboard side.
Well, the prospect of a wind to hydrogen industry in this province is not talked about like it once was. So what is the latest on this clean energy revolution that was supposed to transform this province? Here Now's Terry Roberts went asking and has this report.
A few years ago, the hype over hydrogen had reached a fever pitch in this province. Developers were scrambling for access to Crown land and talking up multi-billion-dollar investments. There was the prospect of many hundreds of wind turbines dotting the landscape and hydrogen plants being built from Stephenville to Argentia. Much of this clean energy excitement has tapered off as hype meets reality. But not everyone is writing off this industry.
We've spent millions of dollars to get to the point where we are now.
The port of Come By Chance. About 60% of the province's gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel comes in through this port. That's not about to change anytime soon. But there's a plan to expand this fossil fuel-focused facility into a green energy hub. North Atlantic Refining wants to construct a hydrogen plant at this terminal, producing 30,000 tons annually. And the renewable energy needed to power the operation will be built here, on Crown land, overlooking the town of Sunnyside. 320 megawatts, 47 massive turbines, a 25-kilometer transmission line.
We have executed a number of engineering studies that give us a lot of confidence.
We've heard all this before, and the hype only intensified when leaders from Canada and Germany descended on Stephenville a few years ago. There's 6 hydrogen projects on the drawing board in this province. But there are growing questions about whether they'll ever go ahead. But North Atlantic wants to be in business within 4 years.
We know that those contracts are out there.
5 of the projects plan to transport hydrogen to Europe in the form of ammonia. North Atlantic plans to store and transport hydrogen in a liquid form, similar to gasoline, using what's called liquid organic hydrogen carriers.
The level of maturity of the LOHC process is different than it is for ammonia.
This chemical engineer believes North Atlantic has the right plan, leveraging its existing infrastructure and expertise in the fuel distribution business.
We believe that we're going to be able to deliver hydrogen at a cost that is very competitive with what the market is dictating in Europe today.
My sense is it is still going to take about 10 years to become economical.
But this expert in energy is not so sure.
It is still some time before you see these large-scale, commercial-scale export of green hydrogen from Canada to Europe.
Despite the challenges, no one has pulled the plug on their projects. But timelines have changed, and some are exploring other uses for wind energy. Some have reduced the size of the land reserve they were granted from the province. And not all the companies have paid the millions in land rental fees that they owe the Treasury.
I mean, I'm the first one to say that things were certainly very hot and heavy, a lot of talk, but there's a reality to this.
Like any new industry, there are growing pains.
Everybody starts with high hopes. Sometimes reality sets in and it sort of roots out the industry and leaves a number of people not going forward. That, in our case, haven't been told that yet.
It's Economics 101. The winners will be the ones who can produce green hydrogen at a price the market can afford. And according to Professor Amit Kumar, we're just not there yet. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it's been 45 years since a young man showed up in St. John's determined to run across Canada. He was raising money for cancer research and went on to become a household name as well as a national hero. But very few people were there in 1980 when a little-known Terry Fox dipped his leg into the Atlantic. To honor that anniversary, his older brother, Fred, made the trip to St. John's this weekend. Abby Cole was there.
It was right here on April 12th when Terry Fox began his marathon of hope And now, 45 years later, his brother, Fred Fox, returned to honor him.
Well, it means so much. Terry said after he ran here in St. John's 45 years ago and before he fell asleep, his very first words that he wrote in his journal were, "Today is the day it all begins." He could never have imagined what those words would mean all these years later. Families have been given their loved ones longer than ever before, and people are surviving the cancer diagnosis because of what Terry started here 45 years ago.
Much like Terry's run, this one started small but grew along the way, with supporters and researchers joining in until they reached City Hall, where Mayor Danny Breen honored Fred as the then mayor honored Terry in 1980.
That day she put the chain of office on Terry, and today, 45 years later, I'd like to be able to put the chain of office onto you to remember that day. That's so important to all.
The Terry Fox flag was raised, and the event moved inside with speeches, in a room filled with photos of Terry from more than 4 decades ago.
We ran each one of those 42 kilometers every day. We were inspired by the sacrifice Terry was making and every step that he took to help others. We were moved by Terry's honesty and his integrity every time he stopped in towns between St. John's and Thunder Bay and spoke about why he was running across Canada. Terry expected nothing for himself. He asked, if you give $1, you are part of the Marathon of Hope.
45 years later, the memory of Terry Fox continues to grow, as does the money raised, and neither show any signs of slowing down. Abby Cole, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a flock of bird watchers on Signal Hill are all aflutter over the annual return of the Signal Hill bald eagle. A group gathered on Sunday hoping to catch a glimpse. Have a look.
This is a popular spot just outside of Signal Hill here in Cuckold's Cove. And there's some bald eagles hanging around here and a very popular nesting site. The eagles apparently been coming back here for over 10 years to the same site and raising their young again and again. So yeah, it's quite common to see a lot of traffic around the perimeter of the nest site. And it's an exciting time for photographers to watch what's happening here. One of them perched just outside the edge here, so a few steps down over the cliff, popular viewing point. The eagle perched not far away at all, so got some beautiful shots of him just hanging out in the tree and calling out to his friends.
I would say probably 10 years or more. We've known about the eagle for sure. We've done the Ladies Lookout hike. It's just this beautiful symbol of nature, It's always here. It's so close to town. It's not the only reason I would come to this hiking area, but it's definitely a nice bonus.
For me, it's really encouraging to see so close to the city that the eagles are thriving here in the wildlife. We have foxes here, a nice variety of songbirds, and it's very active. So it goes to show, even with parks taking care of the area and the conservation efforts obviously are working. So this is a protected area, and it's exciting to see all of that work and the eagles thriving and the rest of the wildlife thriving so close to our community.
And what a beautiful weekend for that. Things have changed dramatically today across parts of the province, particularly up across Labrador. Very much spring-like today, yesterday rather, but very much like winter this afternoon. This area of low pressure is going to continue to bring some snow to parts of Labrador and some rain again to parts of the island, as well as some wintry weather for the northern peninsula. Take a look at this warning board. Freezing rain warnings, winter storm warnings, rainfall warnings, as well as snowfall warnings are in place. That will continue for most of tonight, and that snow will continue for most of tomorrow up across parts of Labrador. So expect rain and freezing rain, that spring snow for Labrador tomorrow. And then we've got our next system going to bring another round of rain and potentially some wintry weather to parts of Labrador. I'll get into all the details a little later.
So here's what we've gathered from talking to local residents.
I spoke with a renter who's facing eviction this fall.
It is not for the weak of stomachs.
What does it mean for you to be able to give that advice and to know that you've helped?
Don't look down.
If this is something that you didn't know about, let me tell you.
Heather Gillis, CBC News, Happy Valley Goose Bay.
St. John's.
Corner Brook.
Shaji, Innu First Nation.
Grand Falls, Windsor.
New West Valley, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Welcome back. Well, the NDP is raising concerns on behalf of pediatricians who don't want the province to push ahead with moving gynecology care to the Janeway Children's Hospital. Here Now's Jenna Head has that story.
Preserve, Protect, Prioritize. That is the name of the report NDP leader Jim Dinn tabled in the House of Assembly on Monday. Written by Janeway pediatricians, the 30-page report lists a number of concerns about the proposal to move women's health onto the 4th floor of the Children's Hospital.
For anyone to put together this kind of report tells you just how angry and they are, and how, I guess, little their opinion mattered beforehand.
Lack of engagement, compromised pediatric care, complex healthcare demands, and losing vital donors are just some of the doctors' concerns.
We have other examples too, I guess, that of just how, I guess, little concern that this government has for the Janeway Children's Hospital. Where did the freezers go for the bodies? But into the parking lot in the basement of the Janeway.
The PCs want to see doctors consulted.
As I have been saying, that if you really want to fix healthcare in our province, you need to talk to the people that work in it. And it appears that this has not happened again.
Meanwhile, the province says it hasn't seen the report, but doesn't plan to take beds away from sick children.
We're not aware of receiving any document from physicians, so that was kind of out of the blue. We're not talking about empty beds. We're talking about empty space that's not been used and hasn't been used.
Doctors are also concerned about critical care being moved to the future Kenmount Crossing Hospital. But Haggie says it's too soon to talk about and that ICU care won't be limited to one facility.
I think you're looking at something that is still in someone's head. This is 10 years down the line.
But it's something the doctors want discussed now, and with $3 million in the budget to redevelop the Janeway, they say they want to be part of that plan. Jenna Head, CBC News, St. John's.
And staying with this story, Pat Parfrey knows pediatricians are against this new plan for the Janeway, but the CEO of Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services says it's a solution he hopes will get dozens of patients out of congested hospital corridors. At today's regular media update, Parfrey said something has to be done to deal with capacity issues at the health sciences.
It has no impact on the pediatric beds. And in fact, our discussions have no impact on the pediatric beds. I'm repeating it just so that you're aware of what's going on. There is a degree of urgency for us as the executive of NL Health Services in that we've got approximately 30 patients that are in corridors every day that are waiting to be admitted to the Health Sciences Centre. We are over capacity, and that has a direct effect on getting people in from other hospitals across the province, has offload delay for ambulances and risk for patients who are in corridors. And at the other end of it, we've got space that's occupied by a community clinic. So our feeling is that we should investigate trying to improve the capacity of the Health Sciences Centre by moving the gynecology unit to the Janeway clinic. There's no doubt that the paediatricians are against it because they feel that the Janeway should be a children alone clinic or children alone hospital, whereas our concern is about the risk that's facing people having to be in stretchers and corridors because we're over capacity at the Health Sciences Centre.
Well, it's a good day for a duck in St. John's. You're looking at a shot of the Parkway here outside our station. It may feel more like spring, especially over that beautiful weekend we just had, but we're certainly paying for it with the wet weather. Ashley will be back with your forecast just ahead.
Canada and the cartels are locked in a game of cat and mouse.
We're gonna pounce. Today is our day to pounce. Okay.
We are embedded with the Royal Canadian Navy here in the Caribbean, one of the major supply routes of cocaine reaching Canada. Coming up this week on Here and Now, a feature documentary on where cocaine comes from and the countless lives affected along the way.
Package in the water, starboard side.
Well, Ashley, we touched on this, but what a stunning weekend it was. My goodness, it really felt like we were coming out the other end. It really felt like spring, but today was quite different.
Yeah, very different. Rainy conditions across a good chunk of the island. And then we went from spring yesterday to winter again today for parts of Labrador and even the Northern Peninsula as well. Let's take a look at the current warnings right now. It's been a while since we've seen a map like this, but we've got rainfall warnings in place as well as freezing rain warnings for the interior and towards the west coast and up through Green Bay, White Bay, and then Northern Peninsula, southeastern Labrador, you're under a winter storm warning, and that's because we're going to see some snow, some ice pellets, and even some windy conditions that will certainly feel wintry. And then Cartwright, you're currently under a snowfall warning. And we will see that continue tonight and into the first part of tomorrow, or most of tomorrow, I should say. So taking a look at the rain and freezing rain, that freezing rain is the pink there. And that is through mainly where we're seeing those warnings. And then on the west coast for now, at least the southwest coast, seeing some fairly heavy rain as well. Now, most of the heavy rain in the east has moved offshore, and we're really only going to see some showers as we head through tonight. And then taking a look at where the radar ends here, we can see a line of ice pellets and then some snow on the backside of that. So we're seeing basically follow that line up the Northern Peninsula. That's where the snow line is. And you can see really from the temperatures why we're seeing that freezing rain falling in the Green Bay, White Bay area. And then St. Anthony, you're currently sitting at about -1. So if we take a look at the live shots now, the cameras, Daniels Harbor, you're still in that rain, but you head a little bit further north, Flowers Cove, St. Anthony, and even Lansaloo, you're seeing the snow falling. And that will, like I said, continue as we head through tonight. Now we're seeing this onshore flow here. So I do think that parts of the Northern Peninsula may actually see this change back over to rain as we head through tonight. Southeastern Labrador, mainly snow, and then through parts of central, mainly the interior, and then again that Green Bay, White Bay area back towards Corner Brook, Deer Lake. You'll likely continue to see that freezing rain before we see some colder air wrap in, and then this likely will change over to even some flurries as we head into the early morning hours. So definitely a mess of weather happening depending on where you are. But really the main wintry area will be for the Northern Peninsula. You're also going to see Northern Peninsula and southeastern portions of Labrador where winds will be fairly gusty as well. But here's a look at the rest of what's to fall for freezing rain potential, anywhere from 5 to 10 millimeters. Again, that should end overnight tonight. But overall, temperatures for central and east will sit around 3 degrees with those winds out of the south, and then more of a northeasterly flow for the Northern Peninsula, southeastern Labrador. So your winds will be a little gusty, 60, 70, maybe even upwards of 100 km/h winds expected for the coast, and then the snow for Labrador as well. So as far as that snowfall goes, there is a chance some areas may see upwards of 20 to as much as 30 millimeters. I do think this is overdone in the southeast because we'll likely see some rain in the mix, but the higher elevations, you could pick up about 35 centimeters of snow by the time this is all said and done. and significantly less because we'll see some ice pellets in the mix for the northern peninsula. So essentially expect that to continue tomorrow. Now there is a chance even for central and eastern Newfoundland tomorrow that we see a few flurries in the mix, at least through the first part of the day. And then temperatures will warm up, so that should end, and we may just see some drizzle through the day. And again, most of southeastern Labrador, you may even see some of that happen as well. When you get those onshore winds, the potential for some flurries, or some showers rather, in the mix. And then as we head through the overnight and into early Wednesday, our next system moves in. And this is again going to bring some rain, potential for some freezing rain, and then snow up across parts of Labrador as well. Overall, our daytime highs tomorrow for central and east should sit between 6 and 7 degrees. The winds will be out of the south, somewhere between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. A notable difference in temperatures as you head west, though, because your winds are more northwesterly and your temperatures are going to be cooler, 2 to 3 degrees through the day. The best chance of seeing any sort of sunshine will actually be on the south coast tomorrow at about 4 degrees for Burgeo. Now, for Labrador, overall temperatures will be between 2 and 3 degrees for you as well. Northern Peninsula hovering around the 0 degree mark, and then Lab City will hover around +1 through the day. Winds generally around 20 to 40 kilometers, with the exception, again, for the southeast. So that's a look at your forecast for your Tuesday. I'll have your long-range forecast coming up.
Well, a school in St. John's is celebrating its cultural diversity. The students at Bishop Abraham Elementary come from more than 30 different countries. It's a lot of different cultures and languages to be proud of, and late last week they were on full display.
So today we're having our annual multicultural fair. So our student population is very diverse. We have students from countries all over the world.
So we have students from over 30 countries and over 30 languages represented at this school as well. So this is just an event to help showcase all of the cultures at our school and get students to feel like they're welcome here.
I'm from Syria and I'm wearing a galabia and a hijab and some gold jewelry. I'm really happy and excited. This is the best day ever.
I actually had the privilege of coming to the fair last year, and certainly don't plan on missing it going forward in the future. I think it's a great opportunity to show the diversity of cultures here at Bishop Abraham. Obviously lots of different countries represented, lots of different cultures, as I say. I think it's a great opportunity for everyone to kind of see the uniqueness of the different food.
It made me feel happy and joyful. Also makes me feel inspired by everyone and everything they made here.
I like to sing a song and tell everyone what's my name and what I'm wearing. I'm gonna tell everything.
I like Ronaldo though.
You like Ronaldo?
Ronaldo.
We're all about engaging families to the best of our ability, and I think any opportunity that we can get to kind of bring families into the school, just to be present, to mix and mingle, so to speak, with the staff and the administration and that kind of thing is absolutely great. Certainly empowering for those families, to be here in Newfoundland and to feel so connected to the education system and to the school, just making sure that everyone feels represented.
How Terra Nova the Peninsulas goes early on election night will be a strong signal for how the rest of the country goes.
I think St. John's East really is a three-way clash of the titans.
Still to come, Peter Cowan and his political panel discuss what ridings in the province to watch ahead of the federal election.
with the federal election underway, there's a lot of talk about the national race, but we have 7 interesting races underway in this province. So we wanted to bring in 3 experts to give us their take. Eugene Manning is a political consultant for the Federal Conservative Party and ran for the provincial PC leadership. Amanda Will worked for the NDP MP Jack Harris and is currently Chief of Staff to the provincial NDP. And Scott Sims was the Liberal MP for what is now Central Newfoundland for 17 years. These days, he's a senior associate for Hill & Knowlton, a public relations consulting company. Thanks, all 3 of you, for coming in.
Thank you for inviting us.
Okay, so Amanda, let's start with you. I'm curious about which race you think we should be watching right now.
Well, of course, I picked St. John's East because I live in the district, but I worked for the former MP, Jack Harris, so I feel a personal interest in that riding, but also it is one of the larger riding, busiest ridings in the province. And I'm keeping an eye out because Mary Shortall, who was the former Federation of Labour president, is running in that. And this is her second try at the seat, and she's been canvassing in it for the past, since the last election.
Right, yeah, and this is a rematch because this is in fact the only rematch that we're having in this race.
Yes.
Last time, the Liberals were up by almost 4,000 votes.
That's correct.
What do you think is at play this time that might change that dynamic?
Well, one of the things is I think Mary is more well known as a political candidate. She's been canvassing, I know, since the last election, and I think people know her now as someone else besides just as the head of the labor movement and for the province. And so I think she's been out and about a lot more, and she's also become president of the National Party. So she's had some national awareness as well and experience.
Eugene, I want to bring you in here because the Conservative candidate, much stronger this time around, someone who's very well known, David Brazel. He was interim leader of the provincial party. How do you think that dynamic changes with having a much stronger local candidate for the Conservatives?
I think this becomes a 3-way race, and I know Ms. Shortall's been working day and night at it, as is Mr. Brazel and Ms. Thompson as well. You bring back the point of incumbents. I think this is the only Liberal incumbent in the province. So the Liberals are pumping up all the resources into this, the NDP are. And the interesting thing for me in St. John's East is how this plays out nationally, with the NDP falling behind the polls. I think they're at 7 or 8% today. In reality, the Conservatives and Mr. Brazel need a 3-way split for this to work out, I think. Really, I think everyone kind of sees that. We were about 10,000 votes behind. So the NDP has to be strong, and I think the NDP have to be strong for their own electoral chances across the country. And I think it's a real bellwether for the Liberals and for the NDP and really for all 3 parties.
So, Scott, I'm curious, having the Conservatives be stronger this time around, what does that do to the dynamic? Does that make it harder or easier for the Liberals?
Well, I think it makes the Conservatives stronger for 2 reasons. I think Pierre Poilievre is not as despised as what many people think. I think he basically strikes a resonance amongst a lot of people, especially those who are angry and want to change. Certainly, if you're an agent of change, and he is it. Dave Brazel has been around a long time, and Dave Brazel is very accomplished. He has a great reputation. That's why I agree. I think St. John's East really is a 3-way clash of the Titans. And I think it's a bellwether because if you look at the way it's going to be handled is the NDP and Mary Shortall, who's been around a long time, and I have great respect for Mary, especially from the organized labor side. But certainly she has to lean into her own personal virtue. I think Dave Brazel will also lean into his own accomplishments personally, as well as the leadership. Joanne Thompson, she has the best chance to say, not only am I the person for this job, but we also have the leader in Mark Carney. I suspect Carney is probably riding a high of popularity in that riding. I'm not certain about that, but it's certainly the national polls dictate that Carney is now one of the more famous leaders. So I think, again, to me, this is a bellwether.
David Brazel has represented a provincial district there for years, has a very strong following there, is from Bell Island, lives in the area, has a lot of grassroots support there, and that's something that you haven't really seen out of the St. John's East candidate on the Conservative side, to be that well organized, that well known, and that engaged for such a long time in a number of years. So it makes it very interesting in that regard as well.
The St. John's East has not been Conservative since Norm Doyle for a very long time. It has been New Democrat much longer.
Okay, so
one final point about that, though, is that if you look at the history of St. John's East, the Liberals have never had a stronghold in there. It's always been Jim McGraw, Norm Doyle, and Jack Harris, all blue and all orange. So there's a lot of pressure on Joanne to measure up and to win this election. So to me, she seems favored at this point, but it's going to be tight.
I want to go next, Eugene. You've picked Terra Nova and the Peninsulas as the riding, which hasn't gotten a lot of attention. So explain, what is it about the race that is keeping you interested?
It hasn't. It's really interesting to me. And Scott mentioned this earlier about Pierre Poilievre being the agent of change. And I think the ballot question across the country is stability or change. Do we want more of the same, or do we want something different? And that has really taken on a life of its own in the past month or 6 weeks. But when you look at the two candidates in Terra Nova, the Peninsulas, you got Anthony Germain, your Liberal candidate, CBC reporter here for years, brings that stable presence, you know, he's familiar, there's a familiarity to it. You even look at his campaign so far, it's almost like he's reporting from the district in his little videos. And then you have Jonathan Rowe, a young professional, and whereas Anthony would take I would say the cultural or traditional angle within the campaign, Jonathan talks about natural resources, resource development. So they're completely opposites in a lot of ways. And coming back to, I think, how Terra Nova, the Peninsulas goes early on election night will be a strong signal for how the rest of the country goes. Is this an election about natural resources and development and that change that we're looking for? Or are people in search of stability in the face of, you know, what's happening south of the border and whatnot?
Amanda, where do you think things lie right now with that sort of balance? What are you hearing on the doors?
Well, actually, I've been talking to some of the people out there, and it's just not a two-way race. I mean, there is also, what you said, two candidates. Liam Ryan for the NDP is a memorial student who has a very promising career, and I think interested very much so in politics and in his future. And what I've been hearing from people is that, one, they were interested, why did Anthony choose this place, because he's not from there, and
yeah, he's got a summer house as his connection to the area. Yeah,
I know he likes salmon fishing, you know, so I understand. But they're not. They're wondering. You mentioned Eugene, stability or change. They're worried about everyday costs, groceries, you know, and that's what they're concerned about, how they're going to heat their homes. So what are they actually, so when you're talking about local issues, there are local issues underpinning everything.
I want to move on to Scott, because there's that similar sort of dynamic in play in terms of the change versus stability in central Newfoundland. That's the riding that you've picked. Mm-hmm. Not surprising, I guess, because that's where you were the MP. You lost last time around, but what is it that you think the dynamic is in play for this race?
Central Newfoundland has always been a straight-up conservative versus liberal, red versus blue. Even in my history, in George Baker's history, there have been a couple thousand votes at play for the NDP, even less for the Greens. So what I like about this dynamic is you have two individuals who look a lot like their own leaders, in the sense that you've got Clifford. You know, when I campaigned against Clifford, I don't know of any candidate in my 20 years of federal politics that knocked on as many doors as Clifford Small. I mean, he canvassed the place incredibly well. He's a fighter. He likes to duke it out. He's an attack dog. He's just like his own leader, Pierre Poilievre. But then you've got the other side of the equation. Now you've got a person who has an incredible resume outside of politics. She started out in life as a fish plant worker. She's a physician, doctor. She's been president of the NLMA. She has an incredibly large resume itself, and the accomplishments that she has done outside of politics are quite substantial, which is very similar to what Mark Carney is. So in a place where healthcare is the number one issue, usually, along with the others, of course, but healthcare in particular, here we have a person that has never run in politics before. And I think this one's going to be close. My early prediction is that this was the closest race in the last election, and I think it just might be the closest one again.
In the last election, if you look at central Newfoundland, Trudeau was a big ballot box question. A lot of people may have decided to vote for Clifford Small because they didn't like Trudeau. It was time for him to go. With him gone, how does that change the dynamic in that race? Scott, let's start with you.
Dramatically, all over. If Trudeau was still the leader there right now, this would be a different ballgame in the vast majority of these ridings, all over. So it's changed a lot. There's been a 30% shift in some cases for polls in the last. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it's almost like it's a rebranding exercise that just might work. I remember when I first ran in 2004, we tried to do the Paul Martin's Liberals to get away from the earlier spending scandals that were in the news. It worked for a little while, but it didn't work very long. It's hard to rebrand after you've been in government for so long. But what's interesting about this race is if these numbers hold up, then Carney has done it. Because I've spoken to people who voted, I have a family member who said they voted Conservative for the last 20 years. They're all in on Mark Carney. And the reason why, and I said, but you're voting Liberal, and they said they didn't care. It's about the personality. It's about Trump in many cases, and most cases, and that's what we're seeing across the board.
Because he's new. He's the new item on the shelf, right? Where Poilievre has been around for a while, Trudeau was around for a while, you know, Jagmeet's been leader for a while now, but I think the polls are moving all over the place. They seem to have coalesced a bit now, but it's not about, and we're going to talk about it later, I believe, about what's happening locally on the ground, and that'll be very interesting.
But you know, Amanda, you compared Mark Carney to a Conservative. Rest assured, I have no money in the Caymans, so we're fine here.
I'm glad to hear that, Eugene.
I think that's Liberal specific in most regards. Coming back to Central Newfoundland, I'd point out, Scott, that full credit to Cliff, as you said, in your campaign, Cliff was almost a one-man show in that riding, and he knocked as many doors as possible. Full credit to him now. He has a well-organized team out there. He's been around the block, and they're a much more well-oiled machine this cycle. In this election, what's happening federally is having more of an impact on the local races this time than what I've seen in the past. Oftentimes, it's the candidates that can really drive it, but I mean, the discourse so far has been very much on a national level as opposed to on the local
Yeah, it has
side.
been quite a bit, and for that reason alone, I mean, I hear what you say about Clifford. The one thing Clifford does not have is Justin Trudeau. Unfortunate for him. Justin made for a fabulous whipping post for people, and trust me, I know. I was part of that post.
Well, listen, I appreciate all three of you for coming in and sharing your insights, and we'll check back in with you as the campaign progresses. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank
you.
you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you. It's been a great discussion.
Nice to see you both.
for details.
Welcome back, everyone. We have company in the studio here with us right now. This is the 10th St. John's Sparks group, and they're here in CBC doing like a little tour of the building. And joining me now is Shelley Party, and you are the group leader for the Sparks. Can you tell us about this group?
Well, these groups, Sparks, are kindergarten and grade 1, so they're the very first entrance into the Girl Guide movement. And so we like to keep things fun. We really focus on sharing and learning to be a friend and learning about things in your community. So it's wonderful that you could invite us here today.
Oh, and tell me what you like about Sparks. What's your name, and what do you like about being part of Sparks?
My name is Haley, and I like about Sparks is that everyone be kind to me.
So sweet.
Does everyone want to wave at the camera? Say hello to everyone. Hi. We have a bunch of parents here in the studio as well with their phones out taking some shots. So it's a rainy day today, a very nice day, I guess, to be inside doing something like this. What other kind of activities do you do?
We sell cookies indoors and out.
The best cookies.
Again, we learn about things in our community. A few badges they earned last week. We're about into the outdoors, so we've done a nature hike. We made biodegradable bird feeders in the winter. We're going to clean up litter in a couple weeks. So that kind of thing. We really want to do community involvement stuff.
Well, I'm so glad that you could all come in and visit us. What do you think about the studio?
What do you think?
What do you think?
Yay.
Yes.
Fun.
And I hear that one of you has a question for Ashley. What's your name?
Lila.
Lila, what's your question for Ashley? Lila?
Ashley, what's the weather like tomorrow?
Tomorrow. That's a great question. It's a good thing I'm prepared for that question. Tomorrow it is going to be a little wintry, so hopefully you guys enjoy some snow. You may see a little bit of snow, but let's take a look at what's going on across the province. As we head into tomorrow evening and then eventually into Wednesday morning, we are going to see the wintry weather continue up across a good chunk of the coast of Labrador. And then our next weather maker moves in, and this is going to bring another round of showers to parts of the island. This time it's going to move through fairly quickly, and it won't be too significant. We may see some heavier showers for the northern peninsula, and then potentially again across coastal areas of Labrador we'll likely see some snow, and again another chance of some showers in the mix as well through the day. As far as temperatures go, it should be a mild one. Temperatures should be between 9 and about 10 degrees across a good chunk of the island. Northern peninsula, single digits, and that's the story up across Labrador as well, anywhere from about 1 to +4 as our daytime highs through the day. And then as we head into Thursday, we will see this area of low pressure essentially stick around. So more wintry weather up across the Big Land, and then across the island, we may see a few flurries in the mix as well, at least through the first part of the day, but into the afternoon and evening hours on Thursday, things should clear out or should stay as some showers. Temperatures will hover around 9 to 10 degrees for central and east, maybe even a little warmer than that, with a little bit of sunshine in the mix. West coast, northern peninsula, you'll be seeing your temperatures in the single digits, and then between 0 and about +5 for the rest of the Big Land. It's going to be mild for the next few days for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland, with highs between 9 to 11 degrees. Then for central, you're looking at your temperatures between 7 and 10 as well. A little cooler though for the west, with the potential for a few flurries in the mix by the time we get into Wednesday with your temperature, Friday, with your temperature around +2. And then yes, temperatures will be above 0, but more in a wintry mix for eastern Labrador, and much cooler for those of you in western Labrador, with some on and off again light snow or flurries right through Saturday. Our weather photo is taken in the rec house. Look at this beautiful shot.
Stunning.
A lovely photo of a calm evening there. Thank you so much to Jerome. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you very much. And thank you so much to the Sparks for coming in for that little tour. They're adorable. They're going to come back in now in a few minutes and play around with your green screen.
It's always the fun part.
Oh, that's always a hit. Yeah. We have like the Harry Potter cape where they disappear. They're going to love it. All right, well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night.